Hi everyone, we are continuing our properties of exponents, and these are still combinations, but these are going to actually have negatives in the problem, okay? So let's go ahead and look at a couple of examples. So I can see that there's multiple things going on in here. I am seeing a -4 here, and I'm also seeing power to power here, okay? So what I need to do is go ahead, and I see there's more things going on in our denominator, so we need to go ahead and take care of this part first. So I do know that I need to be distributing this exponent. So we know that this essentially is going to be 2 to the third, and 2 to the third is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And we see that this exponent, when it's exponent and exponent, power to power, what we have to do here is multiply them. So that's going to be m to the -12. Okay, so we didn't do anything to our numerator, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that. So it's going to be 2m to the -4th. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and continue to divide or simplify. So we have our coefficients 2 and 8, and this fraction bar means division, and we're going to divide it normally. So 2 divided by 8, you can't really do that unless you got a decimal, like you could get a decimal, but we can go ahead and simplify it. So what numbers can divide into 2 and 8? And that would be 2. So we could say, like, divide by 2, and 8 would be divide by 2. And that would be, so 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So we can kind of reduce that down to 1/4. Now, for our m's, if we're going to go ahead and look at what we're going to do with our m's, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of put this into this color so we know what we're looking at. We know that it's going to be m to the -4th, m to the -4th, minus m to the -12, -12, okay? So we know that a negative make a positive. So we know m to the -4th plus 12 is going to be m to the 8th, because -4 plus 12 is 8. And that's a positive exponent, and we don't have to do anything else to this one, and that is your final answer. Now let's go ahead and look at another example. So we have 3x squared y squared over 2x to the -1 times 4x squared y. Okay, so I'm looking at this one, and I realize I've got a lot more going on in our denominator. We've got some multiplication going on, so we need to go ahead and clean this up and take care of this. So let's go ahead and look at our coefficients. So we have 2 and we have 4, and we're multiplying. So 2 times 4 is 8. Now let's go ahead and look at our next like terms, and we have x to the -1 and x squared, and so we're multiplying, so we're essentially adding them. So that would be x to the -1 plus 2, -1 plus 2, because when we're multiplying we add them. So it would be x to the -1 plus 2 is 1, x to the first power. Okay. Now we see that there is a y right here, and that one combines with nothing else in the denominator, so we're going to go ahead and write our y. We did nothing to our numerator yet, so we're going to go ahead and write that 3x squared y squared. Okay. Now we see a fraction bar, and we know we're going to divide. Now we really can't divide 3 divided by 8 unless we get a decimal. So for this one, we're just going to say, we're going to leave it 3 over 8. That's as simplified as this one gets in fraction form. Now let's go ahead and look at our x's. So we have x squared divided by x to the first. And when we divide, that means we are subtracting. So it's going to be x squared minus 1. So that would end up leaving us x, 2 minus 1 is to the first power. Okay. Now let's go ahead and look at our next ones we have. We have our y. And we have y squared divided by y. And let's go ahead and put in our imaginary 1 for our first power. So we know it's there. So that would essentially be y squared. So divided by, or it would be minus for the exponents, 1. And that would be y. So 2 minus 1 is 1. Y to the first. Okay? And that would be your final answer. None of the exponents were negative, so we didn't have to bring anything down or under. And you don't really have to write these ones for your exponents. I'm leaving them in here so you can follow and understand where I'm getting these numbers from. All right, let's look at one more example. So we have x to the negative third to the fourth power and x to the fourth. And we have 2x to the negative divided by 2x to the negative third. So when looking at this one, I know that I have a lot more going on up here, okay? I see that we have power to power right here. And when we do power to power, we know we are multiplying those two. So let's go ahead and do this piece first. There is no coefficient to distribute this to, so we're just dealing with these exponents directly, right? So it would be x, so the negative 3 times 4, it would be negative 12. And we have x to the fourth. Okay, and we have 2x to the negative third for our denominator. I'm still not done with this numerator. Because these two are touching, that usually means multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a little multiplication sign so we know what we're doing here. And when we multiply these two, we're really going to be adding our exponents. We're just adding our exponents. So we know that this is going to be x, so negative 12 plus 4, and that's going to be x to the negative 8. Okay? Now we still haven't done anything to our denominator, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that. So 2x to the negative third. All right, now we are dividing because we have this fraction bar. So I want to go ahead and identify what our coefficient here is, and we don't have one, so it's our imaginary 1. And so if we did 1 divided by 2, it doesn't divide out evenly. It would be a fraction, so let's just go ahead, a decimal, so let's just go ahead and leave it in fraction form. Okay, so now we have our x's that we need to combine. So let me go ahead and box in our x's. So if we have x to the negative 8, and when we divide, we're really subtracting, minus negative 3, negative 3, okay? When I have a negative and a negative, that makes it a positive. So I know that it's going to be x to the negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. Now, what do I notice about this one that I'm going to have to do? I see that I have a negative exponent right here. And when I have a negative exponent, I take what's attached to it and I move it down. So I'm going to leave this 1 right here, okay? And then I'm going to keep my 2, which is right here, and then I'm going to take this x to the 5th and put it like that. And that's your final answer.